Lesson 6. This is Jody's Fawn. Before you read. Often, instead of rushing to the doctor to treat a small cut or burn, we find quick and effective cures using things available at home. Can you think of some such home remedies? For a cut on your knee, a burn on your arm, a bee sting. In this story, Jody's father has been bitten by a rattlesnake. He quickly kills a doe and uses its heart and liver to draw out the poison. Jody wonders what will happen to the little fawn left without a mother. Jody allowed his thoughts to drift back to the fawn. He could not keep it out of his mind. He had held it in his dreams, in his arms. He slipped from the table and went to his father's bedside. Penny lay at rest. His eyes were open and clear, but the pupils were still dark and dilated. Jody said, "How are you feeling, Pa?" "Just fine, son. Old Death has gone thieving elsewhere." "But wasn't it a close shave?" "I agree." Penny said, "I'm proud of you, boy, the way you kept your head and did what was needed." The thought of the fawn kept on haunting Jody's mind. In his dreams, he had held it and kept it in his arms. Now he went near his father and asked him how he felt. Father replied that he was okay and added it was a narrow escape. Penny said that he was very proud of his son as he stayed calm in a different situation and did what was needed. "Pa!" "Yes, son." "Pa, do you recollect the doe and the fawn?" "I can never forget them. The poor doe saved me, that's certain." "Pa, the fawn may be out there yet. It might be hungry and very scared." "I suppose so." "Pa, I am a big boy now and don't need to drink milk. Why don't I go and see if I can find the fawn and bring it here and raise it?" Jody asked his father to think about the doe and the fawn. Father said that he cannot forget the doe which has saved his life. Jody continued that the fawn might be hungry and very scared. Father agreed for this statement. Slowly, Jody suggested to his father that he wanted to bring the fawn home and also provide his portion of milk to him. Penny lay quiet, staring at the ceiling. "Boy, you've got me hemmed in." "It won't take much to rise it, Pa. It'll soon start eating leaves and acorns." "You are smarter than boys of your age." "We took its mother, and it wasn't to blame. Surely it seems ungrateful to leave it to starve. Son, I can't say no to you. I never thought I would live to see another day." Now Penny lay silent and stared at the ceiling. Then he said to Jody that he had hemmed him. Here the meaning of hemmed is caught in a situation where one can't say no. Jody continued that it would not cost much to raise the fawn and it'll soon start to eat the leaves and acorns. Papa appreciated Jody and said that he is a smart boy. He also realized that the mother was killed to save his life and the fawn is alone now. So he couldn't say no to Jody's request. "Can I ride back with Millwheel and see if I can find it?" "Tell your ma I said you can go." He sidled back to the table and sat down. His mother was pouring coffee for everyone. He said, "Ma, Pa says I can go bring back the fawn." She held the coffee pot in mid-air. "What? Fawn?" "The fawn belonging to the doe we killed. We used the doe's liver to draw out the poison and save Pa." She gasped. "Well, for pity's sake." Jody asked his father whether he can ride back with Millwheel and find the fawn. Papa said to inform his mother that he had given him permission to move with Millwheel. So he walked back quietly, trying not to be noticed by anyone, and sat down. Jody saw his mother pouring coffee for everyone. Jody said to her that father has given him permission to go and bring back the fawn. As soon as she heard this, she got stuck up with words. The coffee pot was in mid-air. She asked, "What? Fawn?" Then Jody explained that the doe was killed to save his father. Mother gasped and said, "For pity's sake." Pa says it would be ungrateful to leave it to starve. Doc Wilson said, "That's right, ma'am. Nothing in the world comes quite free. The boy's right and his daddy's right." Millwheel said, "He can ride back with me. I'll help him find it." She set down the pot helplessly. "Well, if you'll give it your milk, we have got nothing else to feed it." Millwheel said, "Come on, boy, we have got to get riding." Jody said that his father told him it would be ungrateful to leave the fawn starved. Dr. Wilson continued that the boy is right and the father is also right. Millville agreed to help Jody. Mother set down the pot and said that apart from milk we don't have anything else to give to the fawn. Millville called Jody for the ride. Ma Baxter asked anxiously, "You will not be gone long." Jody said, "I'll be back before dinner for sure." Millville mounted his horse and pulled Jody up behind him. He said to Millville, "Do you think the fawn's still there? Will you help me find him?" "We'll find him if he's alive." "How you know it's a he?" The spots were all in a line. On a doe fawn, Pa says the spots are every which way. Here, Ma Baxter asked Jody, "How long will it take?" Jody replied that he will be back by dinner. Millville mounted his horse and pulled Jody up behind him and started the journey. Jody asked Millville if the fawn will be there and will he help him to find him. Millville said yes and asked Jody how he knew it is he. Jody replied that the spots on the fawn is in a line, so it is male. He also added that he has heard his father saying that the doe fawn or the female deer will have the spots everywhere, not in a form. Jody gave himself over to thoughts of the fawn. They passed the abandoned clearing. He said, "Cut to the north, Millville. It was up here that Pa got bitten by the snake and killed the doe, and I saw the fawn." Suddenly Jody was unwilling to have Millville with him. If the fawn was dead or could not be found, he could not have his disappointment seen. And if the fawn was there, the meeting would be so lovely and so secret that he could not endure to share it. Now, Millville and Jody passed the deserted clearing. Jody asked Millville to cut to the north as he knew that his father was bitten by the rattlesnake in that particular place and he saw the fawn with the doe. Jody wanted Millville to go back. He wanted to be alone with the fawn. There were two reasons. First, it was possible that Jody might not get the fawn, for the fawn might have died or not to be found. In that case, he would not like Millville to see his disappointment. Secondly, if he met the fawn, the meeting would be very lovely and secret. He would not like to share it with anyone else. He said, "It's not far now, but the scrub is very thick for a horse. I can make it on foot. But I'm afraid to leave you, boy. Suppose you got lost or got bitten by the snake too." "I'll take care. It might take me a long time to find the fawn. If he's wandered, leave me off right here." "All right, but you take it easy now. You know north here and east, there and there. That tall pine makes a bearing. So long, Millville. I'm obliged." Jody said to Millville that the scrub is too thick for the horse to go, so he suggested that he would go alone with his foot. Millville was first afraid to leave the boy as he suspected that the snake would bite him or he would get lost, but Jody said he would take care and asked Millville to leave him right in the place where they were. Millville pointed out the tall pine which acted as a compass and always helped to identify the directions. Jody said bye to Millville and continued his journey. He waited for the sound of the hooves to end, then cut to the right. The scrub was still. Only his own crackling of twigs sounded across the silence. He wondered for an instant if he had mistaken his direction. Then a buzzard rose in front of him and flapped into the air. He came into the clearing under the oaks. Buzzards sat in a circle around the carcass of the doe. They turned their heads on their long scrawny necks and hissed at him. He threw his bow at them, and they flew into an adjacent tree. The sand showed large cat prints, but the big cats killed fresh, and they had left the doe to the carrion birds. Jody waited for the sound of the hooves to end. Here, the meaning of the hooves is the feet of an animal. Now, the scrub was still. Only his own crackling sound of the twigs sounded across the silence. He thought if he had mistaken the direction. Suddenly, a buzzard rose in front of him. Here, buzzard means a large bird like the vulture that eats the flesh of dead animals. It flapped its wings into the air. He came closer under the oaks. He found the buzzards near the dead doe. When they saw Jody, they turned their heads and made a hissing sound. He threw the small branch which was in his hand. Then the buzzards flew to the nearby tree. Jody could see footprints of big cats, but the cats were being killed. So these buzzards left the doe to the carrion birds. Here, carrion means the decaying flesh of dead animals. He parted the grass at the place where he had seen the fawn. It did not seem possible that it was only yesterday. The fawn was not there. He circled the clearing. There was no sound, no sign. The buzzards clacked their wings, impatient to return to their business. He returned to the spot where the fawn had emerged and dropped on all fours, studying the sand for the small hoof prints. The night's rain had washed away all tracks except those of cats and buzzards. Jody parted the grass, but still he could not see the fawn. He went round and round, but of no use. There was no sound or sign of the fawn. He could only hear the buzzards clacking its wings. They were in a hurry to return to their business. Now Jody went to the place where he could find the small hoof prints, but as it rained heavily, it was also washed away. Only the tracks of the cats and the buzzards were left out. Movement directly in front of him startled him so that he tumbled backwards. The fawn lifted its face to his. It turned its head with a wide, wandering motion and shook him through with a stare of its liquid eyes. It was quivering. It made no effort to rise or run. Jody could not trust himself to move. He whispered, "It's me!" Suddenly, there was a surprise for Jody. The fawn lifted its face. It turned its head with a wondering motion and stared at Jody with his liquid eyes. It was slightly shaking, but did not take any steps to rise or run. Jody also stood still and whispered to the fawn as, "It's me," in a soft and lovable voice. The fawn lifted its nose, scenting him. He reached out one hand and laid it on the soft neck. The touch made him delirious. He moved forward on all fours until he was close beside it. He put his arms around its body. A light convulsion passed over it, but it did not stir. He stroked its sides as gently as though the fawn were a china deer and he might break it. Its skin was very soft. It was sleek and clean and had a sweet scent of grass. He rose slowly and lifted the fawn from the ground. Its legs hung limply. They were surprisingly long, and he had to hoist the fawn as high as possible under his arm. The fawn lifted its nose and smelt him. Jody slowly touched its soft neck. The touch made the fawn extremely excited. Jody moved close to the fawn and put his arms around its body. The fawn slightly shivered, but did not move. Jody stroked the fawn's side as gently as possible, as he had a very soft skin and was also very thin. He had a very sweet scent of grass. Jody slowly lifted the fawn. The legs hung limply. He had to carry it little more higher in his arm, as its legs were long enough. He was afraid that it might kick and bleat at sight and smell of its mother. He skirted the clearing and pushed his way into the thicket. It was difficult to fight through with his burden. The fawn's legs caught in the bushes and he could not lift his own with freedom. He tried to shield its face from prickling vines. Its head bobbed with his stride. His heart thumped with the marvel of its acceptance of him. He reached the trail and walked as fast as he could until he came to the intersection with the road home. He stopped to rest and set the fawn down on its dangling legs. It wavered on them. It looked at him and bleated. Jody was afraid whether the fawn would kick or bleat at him. Jody slowly moved towards the clearing and pushed the thick bushes. It was very difficult to move with the fawn. Its legs frequently got caught in the bushes. Somehow he managed to cover the fawn's face. He did so to save the fawn from the prickling vines. The fawn's head moved up and down. Its heart beat fast. Jody reached the narrow path and started to walk very fast until he came to the intersection. Here, intersection means crossroads. He stopped for a while as he was tired and set the fawn down. It moved here and there and bleated at Jody. He said, enchanted, "I'll carry you after I get my breath." He remembered his father saying that a fawn would follow if it had first been carried. He started away slowly. The fawn stared after him. He came back to it and stroked it and walked away again. It took a few wobbling steps towards him and cried piteously. It was willing to follow him. It belonged to him. It was his own. He was light-headed with his joy. Jody felt delighted and said to the fawn that he would carry him after he gets relaxed. The fawn would follow if anyone carries it first. This is what Jody's father said. Jody recalls it and starts walking. The fawn now started to follow him. It was his own. Jody felt so happy. He wanted to fondle it, to run and romp with it, to call to it to come to him. He dared not alarm it. He picked it up and carried it in front of him over his 2 arms. It seemed to him that he walked without effort. His arms began to ache, and he was forced to stop again. When he walked on, the fawn followed him at once. He allowed it to walk a little distance, then picked it up again. The distance home was nothing. He could have walked all day and into the night, carrying it and watching it follow. Jody wanted to care, run, and play with the fawn. He was very conscious not to frighten the fawn. Again, he carried the fawn and walked. By now, he walked in an easy manner. Again, his arm began to ache, and he stopped. After a while, he walked. The fawn followed him. Jody allowed the fawn to walk for a distance and again carried it. The distance to his house was very less. He was wet with sweat, but a light breeze blew through the June morning, cooling him. The sky was as clear as spring water in a blue china cup. He came to the clearing. It was fresh and green after the night's rain. He fumbled with the latch and was finally obliged to set down the fawn to manage it. Then he had an idea. He would walk into the house, into Penny's bedroom, with the fawn walking behind him. But at the steps, the fawn balked and refused to climb them. He picked it up and went to his father. Penny lay with closed eyes. He was sweating, but suddenly a light breeze blew and he felt cool. The sky was clear, and finally he reached the clearing. It was fresh after the night's rain. He tried to open the latch, keeping the fawn in his arms, but he couldn't. Then he set the fawn down and managed to open it. Then he planned to walk into Papa's room with the fawn. He expected the fawn to come behind him, but it stopped as it did not know how to climb the steps. Then Jody picked it up and went to his father, who was lying in his bed with his eyes closed. Jody called, "Pa, look!" Penny turned his head. Jody stood beside him. The fawn clutched hard against him. It seemed to Penny that the boy's eyes was as bright as the fawn's. He said, "I am glad you found him." Jody then went to the kitchen. The fawn wabbled after him. A pan of morning's milk stood in the kitchen safe. The cream had risen on it. He skimmed the cream into a jug. He poured milk into a small gourd. He held it out to the fawn. It butted it suddenly, smelling the milk. He saved it precariously from spilling over the floor. It could make nothing of the milk in the gourd. Jody called his father. Papa turned and saw Jody with the fawn. Papa noticed that Jody's eyes were as bright as the fawn's. Papa felt happy. Jody went to the kitchen and the fawn followed him. Jody went near the pan in which the milk was ready. He removed the cream and poured it in a gourd and held it in front of the fawn. As the fawn was not used to it, he butted it suddenly. Here, butted means hit with the head. Now Jody was very conscious not to spill the milk, so he held the gourd tightly and saved the milk from pouring on the floor. He dipped his fingers in the milk and thrust them into the fawn's soft, wet mouth. It sucked greedily. When he withdrew them, it bleated frantically and butted him. He dipped his fingers again, and as the fawn sucked, he lowered them slowly into the milk. The fawn blew and sucked and snorted. It stamped its small hoofs impatiently. As long as he held his fingers below the level of the milk, the fawn was content. It closed its eyes dreamily. It was ecstasy to feel its tongue against his hand. Its small tail flicked back and forth. The last of the milk vanished in a swirl of foam and gurgling. As the fawn did not know how to drink it, Jody dipped his fingers into the milk and placed the fingers in his soft mouth. It sucked it. When Jody removed his fingers, the fawn bleated. Again Jody did the same. Then slowly Jody lowered his fingers into the gourd. Then the fawn sucked the milk and snorted. Here, snorted means make a sound from the mouth or nostril. The fawn was now satisfied. It closed its eyes. Jody said that it was a great pleasure to feel its tongue against his hand. The fawn flicked its tail back and forth. The milk was completely vanished and finally it started to gurgle. Here gurgle means a low bubbling sound coming from the throat. Finally the fawn was safe in Jody's care.